In the spirits of rivalry week, we cross over to enemy lines. He is the best and the baddest in the business when it comes to Clemson. You already know who it is. Our good friend Clemson Tom. He joins the show. Tom, what's going on, man? It is great to chat with you once again. I'm not sure that you and I have interacted much since last year's rivalry game, the trash talk that took place before, during, and after. But in all seriousness, man, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. Always a pleasure to chat with you, and looking forward to chatting with you directly related to Saturday's game. What's going on, my man?
Hey, man, hell of an intro. Appreciate that. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving to you too. I remember last year's back and forth was, I think we crashed Twitter there for a minute. I mean, you got me back to making a YouTube video and everything else. And I don't know if I told you, but because we were going back and forth, and I was driving through Augusta, and it was 2 miles away from the house that you grew up in, and I almost went and took a picture with your mom to post it, or in front of your house or something, just to have like the cherry on top of the Twitter arguments that we were going back and forth. Man, last year was just great, and unfortunately we lost. You guys won, beat us in Death Valley. It was a heck of a game, honestly, going back and forth. I don't think anybody besides you guys had y'all picked, but it's a fun time. It's a rivalry, man. I don't take it as serious as I used to, but it's what makes college football fun. I was talking to a buddy today and talking about all the realignments and how it could take away, certain rivalries that have been around forever. We talked about Texas A&M and Texas. Now they'll probably have their rivalry back, but there's just certain ones, man. I don't care if you leave a conference, join a conference. There's certain games that should never, ever, get lost in the schedule. Maybe this one, definitely for us.
Yeah, and the beauty of last year too, Tom, and again, that was my number one goal, was just to bring you out of retirement, my man. So I was happy when I saw you post the YouTube video. It's like, Clemson Tom is back. Clemson Tom is back. But no, in all seriousness, the best part about last year, that trash talk, was it was before a really fun game, an entertaining game, a back and forth game, which we hadn't really seen a back and forth South Carolina Clemson game in quite some time. And just to echo that, Tom, going into this game Saturday, I heard this stat. Do you realize it's the first time since 2014 the spread for the South Carolina Clemson game in Vegas is not double digits? So that really gives you an idea of just how dominant, how one-sided it had been. But before we get into the game, Tom, you mentioned the rivalry, growing up with it. Obviously, it's something that gets in your blood really early. You mentioned, everybody knows, I think I'm from North Augusta, South Carolina. So you're right there on the border of Georgia. I mean, I had Gamecock friends, Bulldog friends, Tiger friends. And that's really what made me love college football as much as I did, was the back and forth, the trash talk. You always look forward to that last game. What are some of your favorite and least favorite memories of the South Carolina Clemson rivalry?
Did I lose you?
I'm going. There he is. Okay. You might have lost me. Technology is great until it isn't. Favorite memories and least favorite memories of the rivalry. Favorite memories and least favorite memories of the rivalry.
Favorite memories is probably when we ended the 5-peat. That was a fun one. At the time when the teams, because I was in my piss and vinegar days when the teams fought. That was cool. Looking back, I wish we wouldn't have done it, but it's the rivalry. Always, hindsight 2020, I wish that wouldn't have happened, but it did. And at the time, it was like, oh my God, they're fighting. This is crazy. WWF. Least was probably, I was on the sidelines. It was the game. Swearingen hit Ellington and flipped him. And I felt that we could have done something in that game. It was going back and forth. And we had to go for it, and Dabo punted. And I left the game. I was like, Dabo quit. Dabo realized it was a loss, didn't want to go for it, and we punted it to you. I just remember how sick that made me feel. And because our defense wasn't stopping you. You guys were, going down the field. It honestly felt like we quit. And it pissed me off, left me with a bad feeling. It was at home, and I remember just walking off the field. And it was fourth quarter. That was probably my worst one, but best is probably when we ended the 5-peat, and then we had our own streak going. not a trash talking, but we owned you there for a little bit, and Spurrier came in and changed the script, and which made it fun looking back. I hate to lose to you, but it's not a rivalry if we continue beating you. You gotta have that one in there that throws the match back on the gasoline fire, spits it back up. So I think Spurrier did a really good job of getting the rivalry back.
Going back to your peak content days, Tom, you had a character called Carolina Clint. Where was that inspired from? Was that inspired by like a guy you knew, or just Gamecock fans you had interacted with? Like, take me back to where did the character Carolina Clint come from?
I was in Columbia visiting my mom, and I was listening to Gamecock sports talk, and every Gamecock would call in and say the most ridiculous things. Like, and some of them were like a stretch. It was like, Clowney's going to win the Heisman. Connor Shaw's going to win the Heisman. Spurrier's a Hall of Famer. He's going to get Coach of the Year. We could beat, the Chicago Bears. Like, the stuff they were saying, I was like, these people exist. And so I just started mocking them in the truck with my mom. She's laughing. She's like, you should do a video, but make it, the alter ego of, because people that know me. My whole Clemson Tom thing is almost a character in a sense. I put a little piss and vinegar on it, spice it up. At the end of the day, like, the Clemson Tom on the YouTube is like fun. It's almost like I'm cutting a WWE reel. Some of the stuff I say I mean and everything else, but it's to get you engaged, and it's for fun. So she talked me into doing the opposite, but being basically I was repeating what I was hearing on the radio, and Carolina, and then Clint. So the C and the C went with it, and then that just became fun. Someone made a Twitter of Carolina Clint, and I don't even know if it's still around. It might be, it might not be. I know it was around for a few months, but and then I just did that, and it made my YouTube videos more fun because I can make fun of Clemson, but from a Gamecock standpoint. And then I would just take what I would hear from both sides and just make Carolina Clint his own character. And those are the funnest because I could say anything I wanted to, and at the end of the day, I'm laughing at myself, and it just made it fun.
Now, there's been some great coaching matchups, Tom, over the years. Obviously, the jabs back and forth between Dabo and Spurrier, and even go back to Holtz and Bowden. And now we got a pair of coaches, obviously Dabo Swinney at a different point in his career, and Shane Beamer on the South Carolina side. And I swear to you, Tom, at some point this season, I was convinced that Beamer and Dabo were in a chat chain together, or a text chain going back and forth, seeing, okay, who can say the more ridiculous thing this week to the media? Because it seemed like one comment after another from both guys was making headlines. Your thoughts on the current dynamic in the Palmetto State of the two coaches, Beamer on one side, Dabo on the other?
Well, the funny thing is you guys always made he says almost as a fucking Clemson, bring your own guts, all the stuff he has. And then y'all made fun of us forever for it. Basically, a 4-man version of Dabo. And, he's dancing around doing all this other stuff that Dabo was doing. He's talking to the media about, I don't listen to what he says unless it gets posted 90 times. And then, then I'll listen to it. But like the chain gang was eating a hot dog, or he's pissed off at this guy, pissed off at that guy. He always crosses his arms like he's pouting, which is really funny, especially after you guys lose. I'm sure after we lose, y'all find, the hilariousness and Dabo's rants and stuff. But and then Dabo's like, we're way away from being undefeated. I'm like, bro, undefeated in what, man? Are you seeing what I'm seeing on the? We're not 2 plays away from being undefeated. Talking about, bro. Both had some ridiculous things, but they're both coaches. They both have a job to do, an identity to create within the culture of the program. So I'm sure they do have. I'm sure they text. I think they're extremely cordial with one another. I think Beamer's a good dude from what I can tell. And but yeah, they both say some funny stuff, but that's just who they are. That's what you got to love about it.
Yeah, admittedly, Tom, I'll never forget back in 2020 after Will Muschamp was fired and South Carolina's going through their coaching search. And, I had so many former players on the show. I was lucky enough to chat with them and former Gamecock players talking about Shane Beamer and mentioning the fact that, like, everybody was comparing him to Dabo Swinney. And it was one of those things where, like, even if you think it, like, it made you sick almost. I'm like, do we really want to keep saying this? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, you never want to compare the next leader of your program to the leader of
your
your rival. Right. But it was just like so commonly, because to your point, Gamecock fans clown Dabo forever. And then it's like, well, let's just go get our own version. So it's kind of funny how that works out. That brings me to this too. So it's been a tough year for Clemson. Dabo Swinney has caught a lot of criticism. I know you're even one that's gone on social media and just said, hey, Dabo, you preached best is the standard. You're not living up to what you said. What, in your opinion, has gone wrong for Clemson? Because I was someone, I really genuinely thought the Tigers were going to go back to the college ball playoff. I wasn't necessarily a believer in Florida State. Even if they didn't win the ACC, though, I didn't see Clemson being 7-4 at this point. So what is it? What's gone so wrong for Clemson to end up at this point this season?
Honestly, we still got to develop our guys. Dab always preached best is the standard. What he means by that is your best is the standard. Your best might be different from my best, but he wants the best out of you, which I get. But we've fallen from grace almost. Hopefully we're 8-4, and that's a bad year for us. Y'all go 8-4, and it's a good year. But it's we were so spoiled, and I'll say we were spoiled. We had two quarterbacks that are going to go down in Clemson folklore history. It's always going to be debated who's the best out of the two. But it's tough to go from Deshaun to Trevor Lawrence, and then you kind of trickle down. DJ was supposed to be something. He didn't really turn out to be it. That was a whole internal debacle. And then now you got Cade. Cade's still young. He's a sophomore. He's got a new OC. I knew we were going to have some setbacks. I knew things weren't going to click. I just didn't think it was going to take that long to click. That's what was really upsetting. Not really upsetting, but that was what was frustrating for me. And understood that we were a young team. I didn't think we'd beat Florida State. My 10-year-old, we're at the game. He's like, Dad, we're winning. I'm like, I don't think so, buddy. The whole game, he's tackling me, going, I told you. Comes down to a kick, and I look at him. I'm like, brother, I've been here too long, man. I just knew we weren't going to beat Florida State. But I was also with you. I wasn't sold on him. I just wasn't sold on us. I didn't think we'd beat UNC until towards the end of the year. I felt like we figured out who we are, what we can do, and what we can't do. But there was just some stuff during the year. I'm like, what are y'all doing? Like that internet meme was like, oh no, baby, what is you doing? Like, just like that. Like what's going on here? This isn't us. But I feel like we figured out what we're gonna do. It's like when you get a new grill. You're gonna mess up some briskets, you're gonna mess up some ribs until you figure out how to cook with this daggum thing. And then once you figure it out, like, all right, you get better and you get better and you get better. Next thing you know, you're smoking a brisket for Thanksgiving. People are trusting you with it. That's honestly how I feel that we are now. We finally have gotten to understanding this is who we are. Our defense can do this. The offense can do this. Cade seems a little bit more comfortable. He seems to be more aware of everything. Wide receivers have decided, hey, maybe we should catch the ball, which I'm really loving. Running backs are starting to feel like, hey, maybe we should break some tackles. Offensive line is like, hey, I'm going to open up this hole finally. So there are some things that feel better as we're going forward. But it just, I didn't think the season would be as bad as what it was. And at the end of the day, it's not terrible. It's just not what we expected. Now, next year, I do feel that we're going to have a better year, a new year under the new OC. We've got our guys that are coming in are insanely talented. No one's questioning the talent. It's just, when you're going up against teams that, let's face it, we have the target on our back. Everybody wants to beat Clemson because, hey, you beat Clemson at the end of the day. Meanwhile, we're not where we want to be, but I have a feeling next year, year after, we're gonna be back in the talks of the playoffs.
Now, Tom, specifically looking at this game on Saturday, what I think is really interesting, and the point you made earlier in the conversation, it's a lot more fun when you're going back and forth, one team's beating the other, then the next year it's flipped, and like that's when rivalries become really fun. So I would say this year's matchup has more juice than it's had, more energy than quite some time, because you look at what's on the line for both sides. Neither one of these teams has had the seasons they were hoping for, they were expecting. But as well as I do, Tom, you win that last game against the arch rival. Maybe you don't label the season a success, but it's much,
you beat your rival.
It's much easier to stomach and it's much easier to live with. So when you look at this game, we've talked all week about the importance for South Carolina, bowl eligibilities in the line. What does this game mean for Dabo and for Clemson? Because it feels like after a tough season, you win this game, you finish 8-4. Nobody's going to say you achieved your goals, but you lose this game. And I'm not saying Dabo gets fired or even is on the hot seat, but he's going to be resting on a bed of nails this offseason, I'd imagine, going into next year, like you mentioned.
No, I remember we were at a prowling ground that I was fortunate enough to get to speak at. It was in Charleston, and it was right after West Virginia completely embarrassed us. And I got up, I did my thing, and I got to introduce Dabo, which was really cool. And he's up there talking, and he's like, I know what everyone's talking about. In my head, I'm like, he's got to address the West Virginia loss and how he's going to fix it. Not one time did he mention West Virginia. He goes, I know, I want to beat the team in Columbia as well. And he kept going on and on and on. I'm like, man, in my mind, yeah, it's a rivalry, you want to win it, but he understands, this is big. You have to beat your rival. If you don't beat your rival, I mean, think about this. If you guys beat us on Saturday, not only did you beat us, but now you're bowl eligible. If we beat you, and we kept you out of a bowl game. It's the same thing. I was talking to a buddy of mine's a Florida State guy, and he was like, if we lose to the Gators, we're completely out of the talks of the college football playoffs, and they're bowl eligible. And he's like, if we beat them, we're supposed to, and then we got to hope to get a playoff. He's like, if we lose twice. And it was kind of the same thing with you guys. It's the dynamics are there. Everyone wants to beat their rival, but in the small state of South Carolina, that loss, man, when it doesn't matter, it hangs over you for an entire year. And especially when I thought we had you guys beat last year at home. And you guys ended our home winning streak. I think it was the longest or second longest in the country or something weird like that. But it means a lot to a lot of people. And if you were to tell me, all right, I'll give you a pick, CT. Either you lose to Florida State or you lose to the Gamecocks. I'm taking the Gamecocks every day. Because at the end of the day, I can still go to the ACC championship game with a one loss, and it's at Florida State. But if I lose to you guys, I got to hear about it on Twitter. I got to hear about it on Facebook. I got Gamecock friends that'll just randomly just text me the score. I'm like, all right, dickhead. You're like you're my boy. But yeah, 31-30. I got to hear about it. I got Florida State friends, but they don't trash talk because it's Florida State Clemson. Either way, it could go. But it's something about this rivalry that in my opinion, is bigger than Ohio State Michigan. Ohio State Michigan is only bigger because Ohio State Michigan are relevant each year. And look at this year. It's a playoff, berth on the line right there. So there's so much behind it. It's almost like a civil war in the state of South Carolina. And guys like you and I that, tend to be on the front lines of everything. Man, when we lose, you don't want to turn the phone on. You want to turn the phone off a little bit. And you hate to check those notifications because you're like, oh, here, Ricky the Rooster from, Red Banks over here just, dogging how fat I look now and how ugly I am. And I can't believe old Tater Tom, my Gamecocks beat you. You suck at life. You're a terrible human being. And it's like, good God, man, it's a game. But you got to hear about it. It's the life that guys like you and I chose to be on the front line for everything. And it is what it is. So, yeah, man, it means more than most games for sure.
Tom, why do you think the road team has had so much success in this series, right? It's not a foolproof system, but you look back over the course of the years, it does seem like the road team has found a way to win more often than not. Obviously, during the stretch where Clemson dominated, and that team was going to win no matter where that game was played. Yeah. You go back to the 90s, you go back to the 90s, and it just seems like the road team has had a lot of success. Clemson's had a lot of success in Columbia. Why do you think that is?
Because it's saying, honestly, there's a little bit more of beating you guys at home during a night game. Because I hate your fans. You hate my fans. Let's call it what it is. But beating y'all at home on a night game when y'all twirling little towels, y'all got y'all little 2001 pumping, Everyone's getting excited. Y'all been boozing since 7 a.m. Y'all are getting a little bit louder. Something about beating y'all under the lights at your house just means more. I'm supposed to beat you in Death Valley at night. I'm supposed to beat you in Death Valley, no matter what time of day. That's a home game for me. But if I can beat you at your house, shoot, I'll take that all day.
Tom, this has been electric, my friend. One last thing. You don't have to necessarily lock in a prediction. I will tell you, and you may have seen on social media, but I do have Clemson winning the football game 27-20. I think running game, turnovers. At the end of the day, I do think Clemson's got more. I do think it's a 50-50 game, could go either way. If Clemson's turnover problems persist like they have all year, who knows what may happen. What's your feeling on this game going into Saturday, confidence level? And like I said, if you got to pick, you're welcome to share. But just overall vibe going into this one.
I just think our D-line linebackers are going to set the tone. I think we're going to put pressure on Rattler. Rattler, as he scrambles, can extend the plays with his legs. He can, apparently y'all got some wide receiver that thinks he's Jerry Rice that's going up against our top guy. I'm actually interested in that matchup.
Xavier Legette. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. But
Wiggins matchup has been talked about all week. That's for sure.
All week, man. It's like Superman versus Batman. You got to love it. But with Rattler, when he can scramble, that's when he's at his most dangerous because he can tuck it, pull it down, take it for 10, 15, 20. Or at the same time, wide receiver can call their own audible, pull away from the coverage, get open just for a small window. And I mean, Rattler is a hell of a quarterback. You put it right there on a dime, boom, first down, touchdown, whatever it can be. That's what kind of would make me nervous. I mean, that's why I hated Connor Shaw because it could be 3rd and 34. And y'all would have 5 wide receivers out. And I'm like, Connor's going to send them all deep to the end zone, and he's going to run for 40 yards. What would happen? He'd run for 40 yards. First down. And you're like, everyone knew what was going to happen but the defense. So that's what concerns me is the magic that can happen in the rivalry. But I do think we'll win. The turnovers on our side is it going to be too loud for Cade? This is his first time in Columbia. Are y'all going to be throwing stuff at us as usual? Probably. We got to be prepared for it. My son wanted to go. We're at the dinner table the other day. He asked if we could go to the game. And I was like, Grammy said that I was never allowed to go to a game. And he was like, well, maybe this year will be different. And in my head, I'm like, no, it probably won't be. And so I asked my wife, I'm like, can we go? And she's like, if you want to. And she sat there. She's like, it's probably not a good idea. Yeah, I would have a target on my back as soon as they know I was there because we all got crazy fans. Let's call it what it is. I'm not saying my fans are any better than yours. I got idiot fans. You got idiot fans. But it just, it is what it is. So unfortunately, Xander and I are not going to the game this year. But I wish I could go and it would be okay. I would have to sit in a box though. That's the only thing.
Tom, let me just say that I totally understand and respect where you're coming from. I will not be there either, but we will be hosting a post-game call-in show immediately following the game. And so you can expect madness and chaos when losing.
Oh, those are always the best. The call-in shows, I'll probably be in bed. I'm an old timer now. I say I'll be in bed. My ass will be awake watching the game. But if they're late games, man, I get up every day at 5:30, man. These late games don't set me up for success. So I kind of hate them now.
Well, Tom, this is electric, my friend. Best of luck on Saturday. Not too much, obviously, but no, seriously, man, this is a really good time, and I appreciate you doing it.
Yeah, brother. No worries, man. Go Tigers. Have a great Thanksgiving.